Good morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Hannah Booth and I'm the Communications Manager here at MorePay. It's my pleasure to introduce the topic to you for this session, which is holiday pay and entitlement. So in terms of the agenda for this morning, I will quickly go through what we will be covering. So the agenda for today, we will start off by discussing the double Easter, which is upcoming in the next few weeks. Carl will take you through how you can navigate that if you follow an April to March holiday year. Carl will then explain the changes to the rules for carrying over holidays that took effect from January this year, and also exceptions that you do need to be aware of. Following this, Carl will give you an overview of European judgments allowing employees who are on long-term sick to carry forward holidays that have now been enshrined in UK law. We'll then move on to changes to holiday calculations, including the welcome return of the accrual system based on 12.07%. Carl will also cover rolled up holiday pay before concluding the session with a breakdown of overtime, holiday and commission pay. So in terms of how to ask a question, after the main presentation, we will be moving into the Q&A section of the webinar. You may have noticed that your microphone is on mute, but we do still want to hear from you. So please drop your questions into the question panel as shown here. Another note, if you are facing any technical difficulties, don't worry too much because we will be sending you all a copy of the presentation and also a copy of the recording. However, if you are facing any technical difficulties, please do flag them in the question panel, because if lots of them come flooding through, I'll know there's an issue at our end and I can do my best to fix it. So a little bit about MorePay. I'm conscious that there will be some people on the webinar this morning that aren't familiar with MorePay. So we provide payroll and HR software as well as outsourcing services to UK businesses. We've been around since 1966, have all the accreditations you'd expect, and we're rated excellent on Trustpilot. We've built payroll and HR software that's easy. We deliver quality outsourcing options, and all of this means worry-free compliance for businesses. On the slide, you can see some of the businesses who trust us to take care of their payroll and HR. So moving on to our presenter for this morning. If you've attended some of our webinars in the past, then I'm sure you'll be familiar with Carl. Carl's an employment law consultant at MorePay. He's worked here for over 12 years and specialises in disciplinaries. Now I will hand over to Carl and he will take you through this morning's session on holiday entitlement. Thanks very much, Carl.
Thank you, Hannah. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. But just before I start, she's not told you, but today is Hannah's last day before she goes on maternity leave. So thank you for everything that you've done for the webinars over the years. I hope you have a wonderful time. I hope not too many sleepless nights and too many nappy changes. But I'm not going to lie. I think there's going to be some. So thank you for everything.
Thank you,
You'll be missed. And also hello to Molly. Molly's in the room and she will be taking up the mantle of the webinar. So thank you and all the best. Right, okay. March's webinar. Why are we doing holidays at a holiday webinar at this time of the year? Well, it's very pertinent. The government bring in new legislation, typically in April, i.e. next week. And also October, but principally next week. And they've given the holidays a real kind of dusting over. So it's important that you as a business, as SME HR professionals, as SME business owners, you know what's coming down the track. And when I say what's coming down the track, I'm talking about next week. So it's important. Right, double Easter, what does that mean? And that's a very good question. Normally, bank holidays are what you'd expect. Christmas Day, New Year's Day, etc., etc. You can set your clock by them, and quite literally you do. Easter is decided by the Catholic Church, okay, which means it moves around the calendar a little bit, not a lot, but it does move around the calendar. That doesn't fit in nicely with where your kind of holiday season runs, because this year we've got a double Easter. When I say a double Easter, what do I mean? It means if your holiday year runs from April to March, there's 2 Easters, and next year there's no Easter. So it may be worthwhile just reviewing your handbook and having a look of where you sit on that. If you do have a double Easter, i.e. 2 Easters running in one holiday year, then you're going to have to make provision around that. And we can talk about that. By law, you've got to give at least 28 days per annum. Okay, so this year you might have to give 29, double Easter. Next year you'll be thinking you can give 27. You can't because the law says quite simply 28. So what you've got to do is work around that fairly quickly. How you do that is you engage with your team fairly quickly and talk to them to say, look, what are we going to do? If your holiday year does not run April to March, then you're going to be fine. But if it does, you need to engage again, because you, by law, cannot have less than 28 days holiday per annum. So let's click onto the next slide and look at some of the solutions for a double Easter. You may have agreed to carry over one flexible day for next year, and that's one discussion to have with your employees. You can say to them, look, do you agree to take one day this year into one next year, as long as we are on the 28-day minimum? I'm going to skip the next one because we're not going to do that. We're not going to fail to address this. You're all responsible employees. If your customers are of ours, please contact us. The advice line runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, kind of every day of the year, 365, etc. If you're not customers of ours, and quite clearly I'm biased, I would like you to be, but if you're not, it's important that you take some professional advice. You can be in breach of working time regulations, but address that. If you think you're going to take 27 days holiday for your staff for next year, address it now, because you're outside of the regulations, you're outside of the law. Okay. There's 2 more there. I'm not going to go through it. There's nothing more boring than a presenter that just reads through the slides. These slides are available to you after the event, likewise a recording of this. What I'd like to do this morning is chat round the slides rather than read the slides. Also, you'll note that there is an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Please do so. I'm keen for this to be a 2-way exercise and not just me rattling through a slide deck. The reason I'm saying that is it's important. There is a lot of new things coming around next week when it comes to holiday. It's important that you understand, and it's important that you remain legally in the right. Things that you can't do this week will be perfectly legal next week. That's just how the law works. But I'm not going to read that. 2-way exercise. Please ask questions. Okay, if we can move on to the holiday carryover. Okay, this is on the back of COVID. Oh God, I've used that word again, COVID. I hope we were out of that now. But the government have used COVID to correct certain things, and also we're now out of Europe, and we're not political, so whatever your opinion is on that. The European judgments have now become UK law. People in my trade was terrified that there was going to be a huge change. It was going to be known as the bonfire. It's not happened. Things, rightly or wrongly, have crept from EU legislation into UK legislation. I'm not going to bore you about that. The nerds, including me at Morpay, do understand that, and that's why you don't have to. Okay. Right, EU legislation carryover changes. This has changed not recently, but please remember the law moves very slowly. But all employees must take this leave by 2024. Europe allowed 4 weeks of annual leave. The UK upscaled that to 5.6 weeks, 28 days, including bank holidays. But all of that leave must be taken by March 24 because we're now in UK hands when it comes to legislation. We're no longer in Europe legislation. So by March 2024, the door slams shut. So look at the lower blue box there, additional changes to be aware of. We now have, or we always had, but it's now more in focus, a use it or lose it policy. It's a popular myth that staff have an automatic right to 28 days holiday a year. In some circumstances they do, but the law is fairly clear. It says they must have access to 28 days holiday a year. So they can't say, I've taken 15 days and therefore you owe me the balance. That is not the case. It's perfectly acceptable to have it a use it or lose it policy. The second point in the little pale blue box there is employee sickness. If an employee is sick, they can swap their holiday for sickness. So if you have an employee that books a week off and they're ill in that week, they can flip that back, okay, and say, I want my holiday back. I didn't take my holiday, I was sick in that week. And the third point there, and again, this is very relevant to Hannah, maternity and parental leave, 5.6 weeks. If somebody's on maternity leave or parental leave, they can't take their holiday clearly, and that gets automatically carried over. These are the carryover changes. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Welcome back, 12.07%. You're probably sat there thinking, what the heck does that mean? And that's a very good question. That is a very, very good question. It's new legislation and it comes in next week. Now, if Hannah could just pop it onto the next slide. There we go. What you need to do for staff that are not working regular hours, but irregular hours, typically on 0 hours or typically on, I think with one client that is a football club, and their match day stewards work sometimes 6 hours on a Saturday, 3 hours on a Monday night fixture, etc., etc. These are irregular hours. What happened, and again, I'm not going to go into kind of case law today because all of you will bail out on me and I don't blame you. But what happened is the response to a Supreme Court judgment was that you couldn't prorata a part-year worker holiday. And again, that's now been railed back. So if you have an employee that's irregular, i.e. 6 hours this week, 4 hours next week, no hours the week after, 9 hours the week after that, etc., etc. What you need to do is calculate their total hours that the employees worked in the last 52 weeks, multiply hours by, this is the magic figure, 12.07%, and that will give you an hourly figure of the hourly entitlement for holidays. Now, if you're clients of ours, give us a call. We can do this for you. You know, if you use our payroll, Morpay's payroll, this will do it automatically. If not, if you're not a client of ours in any format, have a chat with your payroll provider. But the mathematics of 12.07 should be fairly straightforward in a way of calculation. We live in a world of Excel spreadsheets. The only caveat I'm going to give to this is that this is brand new legislation. This happens April, and we're on the cusp of April. So why am I saying this? Well, an old lawyer told me something that stuck with me for many, many years. The legislation, that's the equivalent of putting a bat and a ball in a field. It's only the appeal judges that will decide if we have invented cricket or baseball. Okay, so this is where we are now. This is brand new stuff. Expect things to develop, not significantly, but they will develop, because it's only down the path will we get refinement into exactly what do we mean. And what do we mean is the blue box on the right. Again, I'm not going to read it because I've got one eye on the clock, and I know Hannah, although it's a last day, is still capable of beating me up. It works on the principle that the salaried employees, and not all salaried employees are on an hourly rate of pay. And also the second paragraph there doesn't give insight into staff that are on, typically in schools, term time contracts, where if you're a teacher, you enjoy a 52-week calculation. And I know I'm getting nerdy now, and I do apologise, but it's worth noting. But if you're a teaching assistant, typically your working year will be 36, 37, 38, 39 weeks, because you don't get paid in that grey area of the 6-week holiday and things like that for shutdown. Okay. Let's look up now on something else that's coming in. If we could move the slide along, Hannah, that'd be great. Rolled up holiday pay. And what used to happen prior to 2006 is, well, holiday pay was introduced a long time ago, the Blair government, 98. And what you used to do is employ somebody on, back in the day, on £5 an hour. You used to pay them £5.50 and say that includes your holiday pay. And that was perfectly legal. And then all of a sudden it became perfectly illegal. You couldn't do it. The idea of holiday pay was for paid annual leave. It was time sat on the beach, sat watching whatever on the TV. And it couldn't be done. It used to mask minimum wage. It used to mask all other types of conditions. However, it is now back. This week, it is illegal. Next week, it's illegal. So your staff that will work irregular hours. So I've talked about irregular hours. Irregular hours on the previous slides were staff that work this week, next week, week after that. Staff, typically fruit pickers or people that just work for a very short period of time and you never see them again, they kind of fell under the radar. So the government has brought back in rolled up holiday pay. A worker is an irregular hours worker in relation to a leave year if a number of paid hours that they work in each pay period during the term of their contract, that is, under the terms of their contract, wholly and mostly variable. That's legislation stuff. Please ignore that. Come and talk to us. Here at MorePay, we talk English rather than legalese. But if you have workers that are totally sporadic, not even irregular, beyond irregular, and you're going to say, what's the difference between irregular and beyond irregular? The answer is, coming back to the appeal judges will tell us in a few years' time. Okay. So what you can do right now, if you've got really, not now, next week, if you've got really irregular workers, then you can pay them X amount of pounds per hour, and then you can top up their holiday pay to holiday pay, and that should be the end of the argument. Should be. Emphasise, this is brand new stuff. Anybody that tells you that they fully understand what's going to happen in future is not true. But we're 98% sure here at MorePay this is how it's going to pan out. Okay, so that's a slide where it's illegal now, and next week will be perfectly legal. If we can move on to overtime and commission, the next slide. Thank you, Hannah. The law's fairly clear, and I realise today has been really kind of fact and information heavy, but you'll get a recording of this, you'll get the slides. I don't normally like to go into kind of mathematical detail, but today we have to. It is important. You as HR professionals need to know what your legal rights and obligations are when it comes to workers' holidays, because what happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future are two different things. One of the things that fascinates me about the job I do, it constantly evolves. What was wrong a year ago is now perfectly acceptable, and in another year, the reverse will happen. Okay, we've talked about holiday pay. We talked about a little bit about how to calculate it, and I'd now like to talk about how to work out what a week's pay looks like. There's two bits of case law, and I appreciate people kind of disappear with case law because it's boring, but it's been challenged. People assume a week's pay is your salary divided by 12 or divided by 52, and that's your week's pay. That's been challenged on two big cases. The first one of overtime. I'm not going to take you through it because it's said previously, I'll say it again, it's boring. But people that do regular overtime, that is part of their wage. So if you've got a staff member that does a stock count on a Saturday, if you have a staff member that regularly works overtime 1 day a week, if there's a pattern to that overtime, that is calculated into their weekly or monthly earnings, and you base the calculation for overtime, calculation for a holiday pay on their overtime including. Sporadic overtime, i.e., as and when, 1 week here, none the next week, sorting out a customer issue 2 weeks hence. Don't use that to calculate their weekly wage. But if somebody is working for a care home that is on call 1 day a week, then that is regular overtime. And when you're working out holiday pay, you need to calculate that into their weekly earnings. The second one in the green section there is bonuses and commission. Working on the same principle, the case law is Locke and Gas, British Gas. Mr. Locke was a salesman, so he got commission on everything he sold. When he went on holiday, British Gas decided just to pay him his basic wage. He challenged that, and it must reflect normal pay. If the bonus is definitely linked to an individual's work, it counts towards the holiday pay. There's two examples at the bottom there. I'm not going to give much attention to those because, again, you're going to get the slides, you can read it, but £50 commission per appointment, then clearly that's holiday pay is due on that calculation. And likewise, somebody receive an occasional bonus or something like that, it's not attached to the weekly wage. I know it's difficult, I know, but again, give us a call on an individual basis. I always get a little bit nervous giving webinars because we're giving really broad brush advice. The devil in employment law and HR is the devil's in the detail. Okay, moving on, if we can go to the final slide, please. Well, final slide for me. This is the really takeaway slide. So if you just click continue. That's the big slide of the webinar. That will tell you right now, next week, how we need to calculate holidays. So if somebody's full-time, 28 days minimum, that can include bank holidays, by the way. So you can have 20 days floating and 8 days bank holiday. In conclusion, please don't forget that we've got the double Easter. We've got 2 Easters potentially in 1 year's holiday. Moving to the right, part-time, equal hours and days worked, and that's a calculation there. I'm not going to go through it because you've tuned in for a HR webinar, not a maths webinar. The third one is what I mentioned is unequal hours worked. Okay, that's the mathematics there. Bottom left is the enhanced. Bottom right is the term time. We've talked about kind of pro rata, 39 weeks if you're a teaching assistant or a catering assistant in a school or a college or wherever. And likewise, irregular hours. and these have got to be, and I know this is an oxymoron, but regular, irregular hours, 12.07. I've taken you through the calculation, and I'll gladly do that again. If anybody's listening that wants to speak to me after the webinar and beyond the questions, I'll gladly do that. So where are we now? We're 25 minutes, which is great. I think we need to kick on to some Q&A. So thank you, Hannah.
Thanks, Carl. We have received quite a few questions, but do keep posting your questions and we will get through as many of them as possible. So we will start off with the first question. Let's have a quick look. We've got quite a few through already. Let's start with Lizzie. So this question is, if I have a salaried colleague who works 40 hours over 4 days, Monday to Thursday, is she entitled to Good Friday as a day in lieu, or is she classed as part-time due to only working 4 days per week?
She will be due a minimum, and again, you need to check your handbook because she may be due more. She'll be due a minimum of 28 days per annum, which is the legal minimum. And if she's working 4 days out of 5, she'll be due 4/5 of 28 days. And he says he's quickly reaching for his calculator. She'll be due 22 days, 22 and a half days per annum. And it's for her to decide where she wants to take that. Would she like the bank holidays, leaving lesser floating days, or would she like no bank holidays and have the 22 and a half days whenever she wants? But she's got to have pro rata 28 days per annum, and if she's working 4 days a week, she'll get 4/5 of the full-time equivalent. And I appreciate that's a little bit maths heavy, but you know, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Carl. We've had a couple of other questions around Easter as well. So next question, if employees receive more than 28 days holiday, is double Easter something we need to address?
Hopefully not. It depends how it's listed in your handbook. If your handbook says that you will get bank holidays, they will be Christmas Day, New Year's Day, etc., then you've got to honour that. But if you give above that, and again, consult with your staff so there's no unexpected surprises, but if you give above the basic minimum, it shouldn't be a problem.
Thanks, Carl. And next question, how much do you top up hourly pay for rolled up holiday pay? Is it 12.07%?
Again, the devil is in the detail, but yes, it'll be based on the 12.07% to top up. But the key is, first of all, HMRC are going to come looking whenever new legislation gets introduced. Again, this is slightly under the counter advice, but I make no apology for it. HMRC go out and look for some examples so they can prosecute and name and shame in the press. So it's important that you don't fall foul of that. But if you want to talk to me, if you want to come back to me outside of this, we can talk in more detail. The short answer is yes, but there's a but behind that. So please come back to me.
Thanks, Carl. Another question that we've had around rolled up holiday pay. All of our workers are irregular. Do we have to offer rolled up holiday pay?
No, you don't have to offer it. It's up to your employees. Again, we're coming back to the word irregular and the definition. And that's really tricky. We're right at the beginning of this. Only appeal courts will decide what irregular looks like. If you offer it and say, would you like either rolled up holiday pay or regular holiday pay, in the event that you fall foul and end up in tribunal, and they're not nice places to be, your argument will be, we asked our employee and this is what they wanted, so why are they complaining now? So if they're genuine irregular, offer it them and see if they accept it. And if they don't, just continue as you are.
Thanks, Carl. Next question is around maternity leave, holidays for maternity leave. Do we need to pay 5.6 weeks only? Or if we have an entitlement of 33 days for all employees, should we be paying the 33 days rather than the 28?
Yeah, the law is very clear on this. Your employee must not suffer a detriment due to their maternity status. So if they'd have been in work rather than on mat leave, maternity leave, they'd have got 33 days holiday. Then yes, that is what they're due. They must not suffer a detriment due to the maternity. So if you're going above the 28 days per annum and paying 33, then your maternity person at some point when they come back must enjoy those 33 days.
Thanks, Carl. Next question. If someone regularly works over their full-time hours and their annual leave is calculated as a percentage against their hours worked, do they still accrue annual leave, or can it be given as time off in lieu?
First of all is yes to both of those. You can give them time off in lieu, that's perfectly acceptable. But if you and your employee decide it's going to go on the holiday calculation, then if it's regular, i.e. you can put your diary over it, and that's a clumsy way of saying it. If it's regular, then it should be added to their holiday. But it's one or the other. Either they have it as time off in lieu, or alternatively they elect to have it added to their overtime calculation.
Thank you. Right, we've got time for just a few more questions. So the next question, can you make people take bank holidays as holidays out of their 28-day allowance?
Oh, that's a controversial question. If you work at, you work for the NHS, you work for, I'm going to mention names, IKEA or a Shell garage, a bank holiday is not a bank holiday, it's a regular working day. There's nothing special about bank holidays, okay? They're not enshrined in law. The holidays where the bank is shut, and that's it. Can you enforce it? Can you elect out of it? It all depends on your working pattern. And again, if you're a client of ours, please come back to us. But sometimes you can enforce it if the business is shut and there's no work to do. Alternatively, if you're in a business such as a care home or something like that, you can refuse bank holidays. There's nothing special about bank holidays.
Thanks, Carl. A question around the 12.07%. So our holiday year runs from October to September. So my understanding is that the 12.07% change will apply from October for us. Is that correct?
No, it's when the law changes, which is in April next week.
Thanks, Carl. That's a useful one for people to be aware of.
Yeah, please. Yeah, sorry to follow up, Hannah. Clearly, I'm going to say please don't operate outside the law. If you say our holiday year runs from August to whenever, no, the law has changed, and your local arrangement does not supersede a legal change.
Thanks, Carl. So we will now get to our last few questions. So next question, we have a lot of staff who work overtime on a regular basis, some periods of the year a lot more than others because it's seasonal work. The staff are permanent staff paid on a monthly basis and are contracted 37.5 hours a week. And the holiday year runs from January to December. So how would we calculate their holiday pay so they're not missing out on any potential overtime?
Yeah, I think the key word in Hannah, what you've just said, is the word regular. If it is a regular, kind of once a week, once a month, every 6 months, then what you do is you take what work they've worked over 52 weeks, and that will give you the yearly salary, and then divide that into your holiday calculation. And that's what they've earned with regular overtime. Emphasize the word regular.
Thanks, Carl. Next question, does the 12.07% calculation apply to those on 0 hours contracts?
In a word, yes. It's a popular myth that people that are on 0 hours don't attract any holiday calculation. That is totally wrong. What they do get is, as I mentioned previously, 52 weeks, and that is divided by the hours, and then we work out 12.7% of that. So if the 0 hours for 51 weeks, even in that 52nd week, they will get holiday accrual on that 52nd week. So yeah, 0 hours or not 0 hours, they will accrue holiday pay.
Thank you. So we will just do 2 more questions. So second to last question, How would holiday pay work for recruitment consultants who receive commission based on successful placements? Should this commission be included in holiday pay?
Again, I'm going to slightly duck this question. It's whatever's in the contract, and if your clients of ours, please contact us and we'll have a look at the contract. But if it's guaranteed or it's built into the salary and it's not sporadic, then yes, it will be used for calculation for holiday accrual. If it's absolute one-off year-end bonuses of we've had a good year, we've made loads of profits, here's £2,000, then it won't be. It depends where it sits in the contract, and if it's regular income, it will, and if it's irregular income, it will not.
Thanks, Carl. So last question, what constitutes regular overtime? We have been advised if you've worked 5 out of an 8-week period, but what's the standpoint on regular overtime, I guess?
Okay, can you spot a pattern? Is the answer. If the answer is every 4th Saturday morning there's a stock take, every 3rd Tuesday we've got to have an audit, then that is regular. Can you plot it on your calendar? And if you can, it's regular. If it's, can you stay back 30 minutes so we can get this order out? That is irregular. So sporadic overtime, not calculated. Overtime that you can see on a clock beat, and that's probably the wrong phrase to use, but can you see a regularity in that overtime every week, every month, 1 day a week, every 6 months? That's the figure to use when it comes to working out their weekly wage for the purposes of holiday calculation.
Thanks, Carl. We will close the Q&A session off now, but I think there's been some really interesting questions there, lots of different elements covered. So thank you to everybody that did post a question. Just a couple of things before we finish for the session today. Firstly, I'd like to point you in the direction of our Knowledge Centre, which is easy to find in the main menu on our website. If you haven't already visited our Knowledge Centre, it's packed full of lots of useful resources, our upcoming webinars, guides, blogs, and everything in there is free to download. There is actually a blog in there relating to what we've covered today as well. So if you are looking for another overview, you can take a look at that blog as well. Now, in terms of our HR support, if you'd like to find out more about our HR and employment law services, please drop a message into the Q&A panel and one of my colleagues will contact you. As Carl mentioned, our HR advice line runs 24/7, 365 days a year, so no matter when a HR issue crops up, best practice employment law advice is always available over the phone anytime, delivered by our highly experienced team of qualified experts. Before we do close the webinar, you'll see a prompt to fill out a poll when we actually end the webinar. We're just looking for some opinions and insights to help us tailor research, resources and content for our listeners and readers. So if you have got a few seconds to complete that poll, then we would really appreciate it. So that's everything from us this morning. We will be following up with a recording and also a copy of the presentation from this morning so that you will have that to refer back to. So thank you very much to Carl for hosting. You've been fantastic as always. And thanks to everyone who joined. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you.